Hello, everyone.
Good evening. It
Welcome to
is
Rowan and Pine.
Ghost Story Edition. It is October 30th. It is the eve of All Hallows Eve when we're recording this.
Some people
And
call it Devil's Night
oh, I like that. Let's call it that. It's
or
Devil's Night,
Mischief Night.
Mischief Night. That's a throwback to our Samhain episode. Um, if anybody missed our Instagram live, because I know a lot of people did, these are the stories because the recording did not go as planned. Let's just say that.
All right. I have some ghost stories from Appalachia. These are from Reddit. This first one, hilariously, this person's username is Doobie 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 Doopy.
Amazing.
So I was with a friend, I'll call him Mark. Mark was at my house one evening, doing the usual things, watching UFC, playing Xbox. This is probably why I thought this was a man. It was extremely late when we finally got bored and decided to go for a walk on a nearby trail to smoke a joint. This is not a particularly long trail, but it is very dense in the woods that surround it, and it is easy to get freaked out when thinking of your surroundings. We finally got about halfway into the trail, which is about 30 minutes of a walk, where we stop, pack a joint, and stand on the trail to chill and talk. The forest is very alive tonight. There are always noises in the woods, but the amount of animal activity for the time it was unsettling. At this point, it was probably past 1 a.m. This was strange and kind of eerie, but not alerting, as any sort of predatory animal in the area may cause a disturbance. We finish smoking and continue our walk when almost immediately the forest falls dead quiet. And as soon as the forest goes quiet, there is a voice. It almost sounds like a mocking humanoid voice, shaky and uncertain, almost like an old children's toy, like the ones with the crackly speakers and robotic voice, if
I
you know
don't
what I
like
mean.
this.
Yeah, that's why I told you. I said this story gave me chills. This immediately sets us off. We bolt directly down the opposite length of the trail, but the sound does not gain distance. It doesn't get closer, per se, but no matter how far we run down the trail, this eerie voice remains the same volume, going over and over with no quieting or stopping. At this point, I'm convinced that we're in genuine danger, something I have felt very few times. Finally, after sprinting for who knows how long, we exit the trail, gasping for breath and almost at the verge of tears of how frightening this was. We begin to exit the trail, and about 5 minutes from the exit, there is a bone-shaking, heart-stopping, murderous scream from directly behind us.
Oh God.
I know what a mountain lion sounds like. This was not an animal. This was not someone playing or watching a movie. This scream sent birds flying from nests and made my heart drop into my stomach. It was the most genuinely depraved and violent scream that I have ever heard. This is a true story, and I've only told maybe 3 people, all of who seem to brush it off as false. I've never been a person to push for the existence of the paranormal or spiritual, but I genuinely believe I encountered something inhuman in those woods.
Oh God. Yeah. I believe you, doobie 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 man.
Doobie doobie doobie.
Oh, that's insane. The way it was described as like an old broken down toy, I can imagine exactly in my head what that sounds like.
Yeah, I
Like
don't like it.
I
But
don't
then
like that at all.
there's a response of somebody who had a
Oh,
really similar experience
shut
in the
up.
mountains of Appalachia. So this response is from, I'm assuming it's Rach 1874. Oh wow, I feel this in my bones. My uncle, my mom's brother, has a farm in the southeast West Virginia since the 70s, long before I came into this world. Mom is the oldest of 5, and my uncle built a bunch of houses on the farm so family could use it whenever. Some lived there, and other, like my family, visited often. My mom and older sister and I would go for weeks on end to spend time with the family, and I always loved it because I have a ton of cousins and I was a baby for a long time. So mostly I tagged along with my cousins and felt extremely safe, like I was in my happy place. I don't really remember anything totally out of the ordinary when I was really little, other than I remember an imaginary friend who I exclusively played with at the farm, nowhere else, and we moved extensively for dad's job, so I lived in many different places. What I remember
That's like
after
a
age
red
five,
flag already. It's like an
yeah,
imaginary friend just for one place.
just at the farm. What I remember after age 5 was suddenly being old enough to not have to have someone walk me to and from other houses, which I thought was so cool. So I used to explore. My uncles liked to bow hunt and had taken me there a few times, not too far into the woods. So I was able to go back on my own and find their little tree platforms they had built to hunt from. I thought they were cool little tree houses. Not tree houses.
Oh no.
They're killer stations. I'm just kidding. Your story sounds a lot like the very first time I ever took off by myself in the woods without another family member with me. It was the winter. I wanted to be out in the snow and explore, so I found my way up to the mountain. That is what I called it, but in fact, it was probably just a massive hill. And into the trees. I couldn't find the spot I was looking for and got pretty frustrated with my 8-year-old self. So I sat down by a creek to catch my breath and figure out where I was. I couldn't have been sitting more than about 3 minutes when something let out a scream I can only describe as blood-curdling. I thought it was a fox most likely until I heard another voice crying, just weeping and wailing, and the sorrow was palpable. My cousins had always told scary stories about Appalachia, and I figured that they had followed me into the woods and they were trying to scare the pants off of me for shits and giggles. I called out like, "Okay, guys, not funny. I'm going home. Enough." And I followed my footprints in the snow as fast as I could back to the farm. The screaming and crying didn't stop, stayed consistent as I moved, which really made me convinced it had to be my cousins. I don't think I heard words, just crying and screaming, but it wasn't pleasant. I made my way back to the main house, my uncle's house, which was the biggest on the property and visible from the edge of the woods. And I absolutely booked it. Ran full tilt to get to the kitchen door. I remember getting through the door and slamming it behind me because I was a combination of terrified and annoyed that my cousins were playing a prank on me. The next closest cousin in age is 9 years older than me, so I was often the butt of the pranks. Well, when you know, every family member was accounted for in the living room and kitchen. The
Of
older male
course.
cousins and my uncles were in the kitchen putting their snow boots and coats on to come look for me. I had apparently been gone for several hours and they were worried. According to my mom, I was white-faced. My hands were covered in scratches through my mittens, and I guess I must have fallen or something. They were so worried I had disappeared. I should add, I set off from my aunt's to walk to my uncle's and had decided to take a detour and didn't tell anyone. Oops, I was 8 and really didn't think about how that might be bad. Mom said I looked like I had seen a ghost. I asked if anyone had come out to the woods to look for me. They said no, we've been looking at different houses and we were just about to come look for you because they saw my footprints head into the woods. I told them about where I went and what I heard, and my uncle, whose property it was, said, "Ah, oh shit, I think you probably ran into the witch." I'm over here thinking, oh, some crazy lady lives in the woods and I probably stumbled near her cottage. Nope. The witch was just what they called the unknown entity that roamed the woods screaming, crying, and mimicking people's voices and giving people a good sense of doom and dread. No one had a straight answer about possible folklore or anything like that, but all my older cousins had their own experiences with similar happenings over the years. Scared the living daylights out of me, and while I've been back to the farm over the years, I can tell you I have never set one foot near the woods tree line, even as an adult. I was grateful my family didn't think I was crazy, but they said a general rule is not to be in the woods alone, so I listened. To my knowledge, nothing physical ever happened with anyone in this entity, more of a prankster than anything. But oof, the Appalachia has some wild stuff.
Oh my God. I
Yeah,
kind
and
of
then it
love that it was a
says,
witch.
yeah, it says, I definitely remember some strange stuff happening during the week we had my aunt's funeral when I was 21. And random voices or red eyes or smoke apparitions on the wood's edge, but I never want to check them out after that one incident.
Yeah, I don't blame them. Holy shit.
Creepy.
Oh,
Yeah,
I definitely
so
do love that it was they call it the witch because it's like very
yeah, but
Blair
can you
Witchy.
imagine just hearing like screaming?
And the mimicking like other voices. Ah,
I'm getting chills. It's
absolutely
actually scary.
not. Oh, Jesus Christ.
I don't get freaked out by scary stories that often, but like these ones, I was like, ooh, yeah, if I heard like weird voices and stuff, I don't like that.
Yeah. And I think there's something about reading scary stories that I find them like way scarier than like watching
Yeah,
anything or like
yeah,
anything like that because your own imagination gets you with them.
right. Yeah.
Um, yeah, crazy. I love when Reddit gives you a gem like that. It's great.
Yeah. Haunted epilepsy. Okay.
Mine seems to be a relatively well-known story in the area that it's in, and I find like news articles referring to it. So, which is pretty cool.
Where where's the area?
Area is in the UK.
Okay.
Um, so this is the story of the black-eyed children of Cannock Chase. And I took it and reworked it from a book called Ghost Stories by an author called Hannah J. Tidy. I just wanted to make it um, work better for time and for reading out loud. So, in the heart of Staffordshire lies a stretch of land known as Cannock Chase, 30 square miles of forest, heath, and forgotten mines. It looks, at first glance, like nothing more than a pocket of English wilderness, quiet, windswept, and still. Yet, for generations, the chase has been talked about in the same breath as ghosts, monsters, and things better left unseen. The stories go back centuries. Locals have spoken of shadowy creatures in the woods, enormous cats with panther like silhouettes stalking across the fields, figures that look almost human but too large, too still, lights that drift silently between the trees. But none of these tales, for all their variety, are quite as unsettling as the legend that took root in the late 20th century, the sightings of the black eyed children. The reports began quietly, surfacing in the 1980s, long after the chase had endured a darker chapter. Between 1964 and 1967, the area had been terrorized by a series of abductions and murders. The victims were all little girls. It began when a cyclist discovered a 9-year old barely clinging to life on the edge of a forest, strangled and left for dead. A year later, two others, aged 5 and 6, were found lifeless in a shallow ditch. In the summer of 1967, another child was taken and murdered near the same stretch of woods. The killer, a man named Raymond Morris, was eventually caught after one of his intended victims escaped and led police to his car. He was imprisoned for life, but the horror he left behind seemed to cling to the landscape like a stain that would not wash away. Roughly a decade later, the first reports of the black eyed children began. Some said that these were the restless spirits of the murdered girls, wandering endlessly through the trees, seeking something or someone they had lost. One of the earliest accounts came from 1982, shared years later by a local investigator named Lee Brickley. His aunt had been out walking with a friend that summer, the air warm and still. In the early evening, she heard a faint voice calling for help. It was the thin, frightened cry of a little girl. Fearing someone was in trouble, she followed the sound along a dirt path until she saw a child running pale ahead of her, her pale dress fluttering as she moved. The woman called out, trying to reach her, but no matter how fast she ran, the girl always stayed just ahead. Then suddenly she was gone. The woman stumbled, fell, and injured her foot badly enough to end her pursuit. When she later told the story, her family urged her to report it to the police. Officers searched the area but found no trace of a child, and no missing persons were ever reported. The story might have faded into local folklore if not for what happened more than 30 years after that. In 2014, after the death of Raymond Morris, the piece of shit from earlier, sightings of the black eyed children surged again. Emails and testimonies began to flood into Brickley, now a well known chronicler of Cannock's hauntings. One man wrote that he had been walking his dog through the woods with his wife when they heard giggling, the kind of laughter that children make when they're playing somewhere nearby. They searched for the source and found instead a girl standing on the path ahead of them. She was perhaps 10 years old, with long hair and a pale face, and her eyes, completely black, without iris or white, stared directly into theirs. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the girl turned and slipped between the trees, disappearing into the darkness as though she had never been there. The man's wife wanted to follow, but he refused. something about the encounter had left him cold. Another witness, a woman named Mrs. Kelly, described a similar experience. She and her young daughter had been walking in Birches Valley when a scream tore through the woods. Thinking a child was in distress, she rushed down towards the sound. The trees were empty, the air still. She turned to comfort her daughter, and there, only a few paces away, stood a small girl. The child's hands were pressed tightly over her eyes. Mrs. Kelly asked if she was hurt, if she was the one who had screamed. Slowly, the girl lowered her hands. What looked back at her was not human. Two hollow pits of black where her eyes should have been, glistening and depthless. Before Mrs. Kelly could react, the girl was gone. In the years since, others have reported seeing similar figures. Pale children at the edge of vision, standing too still, watching, their eyes always the same, entirely black, absorbing the light around them. A few pieces of supposed evidence have also surfaced. A photograph taken in 2014 by a woman named Melissa Mason appeared to show a translucent figure beside her own child in a tree. A year later, a paranormal group recorded a video in the woods after 6 hours of searching. In the beam of their torch, a shape crossed the darkness, faintly luminous, child sized, moving just beyond the light's reach. The investigators noted that while the forest around them was completely black, the figure seemed to emit its own pale glow as if made of the same faint light that outlines a dream before it fades. What the witnesses encountered, no one can say. Perhaps it is only legend, a story born from grief, guilt, and the lingering horror of what happened in this place so many years ago. But the details never seem to change. A small child, silent except for a plea for help or a burst of laughter appearing briefly among the trees, skin pale as moonlight, eyes dark as coal. Those who see them often describe the same final sensation, a feeling of being watched long after the apparition has vanished, as though something unseen still lingers in the forest, waiting to be noticed again. To this day, Cannock Chase remains beautiful, quiet, and haunted, a place where the past has not quite released its hold, and where, if you walk alone after dark, you might hear the faint echo of a child's voice calling softly from the shadows, "Help me." And if you answer, the stories say you may find her standing just ahead on the path, smiling faintly, her eyes shining black in the beam of your light. It didn't
So
help that the
creepy.
entire time I was like completely
Looking like a ghost.
looking like a ghost and pale with black eyes. Yeah, that whole,
Yeah, the it's interesting because like just like the black eyeball like sounds
yeah.
scary,
Hmm.
but then when they said they walked up to it and it was like a pit,
Yeah,
like that's scarier.
yeah. And the fact that, yeah, like it has like the classic giggling children and the whispering children in the woods. Like those are things that
Yeah.
you never want to hear. Um,
I just don't want to hear any disembodied giggling when I'm
yeah, yeah. I
really
mean,
anywhere.
I know. Um, Especially in the woods where you can't see around. We inadvertently both picked woodland stories, but I think it's very on brand for us.
It is.
I think it's with the tragedy in like the backstory of that one as well. It's
Yeah,
like you don't really know how to feel about it because you kind of wish if there are spirits there that they would be at rest, and it
right.
doesn't sound like they are.
Especially if they're little
Very
kids.
heartbreaking. Yeah,
Yeah,
but I mean, as powerless as they were in life, maybe they're getting a little thrill from scaring the absolute shit out of people in death.
I
Maybe
also
that's what they're
really hope
doing.
that you just got the like giggling outside the door.
Oh, I didn't, but
Is
hopefully your mic
I
picked it
hope
up.
it shows up because yeah, it could sound like disembodied child giggling.
No, you should play on your. There's no children here. There's what's that
Yeah,
giggling?
I'm alone, actually.
I'm alone in the house. There's no child outside my door giggling. I love ghost stories. I love
Me too.
scary stories. And I love telling them to you. This
Me
was
too.
nice. I wish our
Happy
live had
spooky
gone
season,
better.
everybody. Yeah.
Yes. Happy spooky season, everybody. I hope
Happy
you
spooky season.
have a great Halloween, a safe Halloween, and it takes your mind off how shitty the world is for a while.
Yeah. It has
Okay.
been fun to try to look forward to the little things.
Yeah, that's what we have to keep doing. And
Yeah.
it's technically Celtic New Year, so it's a good time to start fresh. So,
With pumpkins
yes, with pumpkins.
and witches and all the other fun, spooky Halloween things.
Yes. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this and I hope you enjoyed our October Halloween episode. Um, it was 90 minutes long, so there's plenty to listen to. Because clearly we can talk a lot.
We really can.
Jesus. So yes, we can just end this here and I will get
Yeah.
to editing and make it a little bit more spooky and fun and palatable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween. Okay.
Click.